Good morning. Welcome back to Planet Doug Behind the Scenes for Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. As always, just stepped out of the shower, still have a wet hair, and as always, a cup of instant coffee at my side. And as always lately, my Olympus OMD EM5 Mark II filming me from across the room over there. I woke up this morning just instantly thinking about my day yesterday, and I shot a video of my experiences yesterday morning, and I'll be posting that video as soon as I can. But it was a really interesting day. The man that I've been hanging out with over the last little while, Jamie from the United States, he went with me to ICC Pudu Market for breakfast the other day. I'm meeting him again this morning, actually. After I finish all of this up here, I'll be heading back to ICC Pudu, meeting Jamie for breakfast, and I'm meeting Bill Price, the international big shot. And because, Jamie was watching my video that I shot from our ICC Pudu breakfast experience, and at the end of the video, I was talking about the Popia, and there was another stall there that sold a kind of golden cake. And he watched the video and he saw that. He thought, yeah, we really should have some Popia. So he reached out to me and said, hey, if you're up for it tomorrow morning, why don't we go back and we'll have Popia. So that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. And it's Jamie's last full day in Kuala Lumpur. He's heading off to Borneo for a month. So yeah, so he's pretty excited about that. But anyway, yeah, Jamie reached out to me the day before yesterday and said that he learned that a mosque here near where I'm staying at the Kojoy Hotel, the Masjid India, has scheduled tours at 10 a.m. in the morning. I believe they're on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 10 till 12 in the morning. They offer, the mosque is open to the public. You can go in and look at the mosque. And they also have volunteers there that will answer your questions and take you inside and guide you around. Well, that's what Jamie told me. I didn't know how he knew about this, but that's what that's what he was going to do. And he asked if I'd like to tag along. And I said, sure, I'd love to do that. So at 8:30 in the morning, Jamie showed up here at the Kojoy, sent me a message, said, I'm down in the lobby. So I was all ready to go, went down to meet him. And one funny thing is, as soon as I walked out of the elevator, Jamie looked at me and he had a little bit of a moment. He went, because I was wearing long pants. And of course, I deliberately wore long pants because we're going to a mosque and we're going to be going inside a mosque. And as you know, you should dress, properly to go into a mosque. You can't show up in a tank top and shorts and flip-flops and expect to go into the mosque. You dress as nicely as you can, and long pants in particular. And Jamie knew this, of course. He's been around this part of the world forever. He knows a lot more about it than I do, I think, because he pays a lot more attention to details than I do. I tend to live in my own world as I wander around, and I may not absorb even the most obvious things. But Jamie picks up on everything, and obviously he knows about wearing long pants to a mosque. And the night before, he got ready, because he has those, travel pants with the zip-off pant legs. They're convertibles, right? They can turn into shorts, they can turn into long pants. He got out his long pants, and he was going to zip them on and go to the mosque wearing his long pants. Had all of that ready. And then, as he said to me, rookie mistake, he just left from his hotel and forgot all about his preparations. Like I said, he prepared the long pants the night before, and then he forgot all about it in the morning and just went out. And I can forgive him because I think he was, or I should say, I can understand, because I think he was thinking ahead to the ICC Pudu market, because nice guy that he is, on his way here, he dropped by the market and he picked up 2 Bunchun egg tarts, knowing how much I was interested in sampling one of those. And I tried on a couple occasions to get one, and I hadn't been successful yet. So he was planning on going to the market, and then he was going to pick up a couple of egg tarts and bring them, and we were going to go have coffee. And he thought, we're going to have coffee, and I can, we can have these egg tarts at the same time. So he was already a little bit distracted thinking about that, and he left without his long pants, which I thought was kind of funny. As he said, rookie mistake. And for me, it's a mistake I would have made easily. I'm very careful most times to prepare everything the night before. No matter what it is I'm going to be doing, I have to be fully packed for the next day before I go to bed the night before. Otherwise, I'm going to forget everything. I won't be able to keep track of everything in the morning of, so I have to do it in advance. And Jamie did do it in advance, but then he forgot. But as he said to me, he's pretty sure, mosques generally have something there that visitors can wear. For women and for men, they have the wrap around. I forget what they call them here, actually. Jamie knew the name. That's what I mean. I don't even know the name of this article of clothing, the wrap around. But Jamie knew the name, and it came up while we were at the mosque. Because, as it turned out, well, I'm sort of jumping ahead in my story. Let me back up a little bit. So Jamie and I had plans to go get a cup of coffee and maybe something to eat before we got to the mosque, because the tours were at 10 a.m. And at that time, for some reason, I got it in my head that this was an official guided tour, sort of like you would see a tour group following a tour, tour guide around, big flag on the end of a pole and a bullhorn, gathering people together and then giving a little speech and saying, okay, follow me, and guiding them to the next spot. Somehow I had that image in my head, and I couldn't shake it for the longest time. So I thought, we had to be there right at 10 a.m. for when the tour begins. Turns out it was a lot more casual and, to be honest, a lot better than that. So you didn't actually have to be there at exactly 10 a.m. for the tour. You can show up at any time between 10 and 12. And then a volunteer will likely be there, and then we'll take you into the mosque and show you around and answer your questions. And that's how it's organized. It isn't a 10 a.m. start time for the guided tour, which is what I thought. But anyway, we met at 8:30, and then we set off from here on foot, chuckling about his lack of pants on the way. And my idea, and I guess his idea as well, was just to walk from here to the neighborhood where the mosque is located, because it's the India Mosque, the Masjid India, and it's the premier central mosque for the KL Indian Muslim community. Of course, as a mosque, and as I learned when I was at the mosque, it is open to everyone. However, this is a mosque in the in a little India part of Kuala Lumpur. In the video, I kept calling it Old Little India, because I went there a long time ago and I shot a video there one time. And my idea, from what I remember from my research, is that that was the original Little India of Kuala Lumpur, like the original traders from India settled in that area, what they call the Chulia. It's the name of these Indian traders, these Indian merchants, and that's where they settled. Then that became a little India, a little community of Indian traders. And then over time, the main Little India that we know today and that most visitors are aware of is at Brickfields near KL Central. That's what everyone thinks of as Little India. But this region over here is also Little India, and it might even be older than the Brickfields one. So I call it Old Little India. And that's where the mosque is located. And I knew from previous visits it's full of kopitiam and restaurants of all kind. You can get all kinds of Indian food and local and Malay food, whatever you want, you can get there. So our plan was just to walk there, keep our eyes open. If we spot an interesting place, we'll pop in for something to eat, something to drink. And then Jamie had the egg tarts to go along with whatever it was we got. So we got to Little India, Jamie picking up a couple of donuts along the way. He can never resist all the food stalls that we passed. And we passed a few of them around Masjid Jamek, the mosque and the LRT station there. they set up all these food stalls for the people who are, rushing to work, getting onto the LRT, and they stop there and get all their breakfast food and their lunch food, stuff like that. And Jamie picked up some donuts. Raining a little bit, but it ended up being a pretty nice day, but it was raining in the morning again. And then when we got to Old Little India, we were passing by a number of interesting places, and one restaurant in particular caught Jamie's eye, and this was the President Curry House, an Indian restaurant. And when we glanced through the window, I saw the man in the window, or he had a cooking area near the front of the restaurant at the window, and I peeked my head in there, and he was making roti. And I chatted with him a little bit, and he was making egg roti and beef roti, and of course plain roti for, roti canai. And Jamie and I went in there, took a table. I got a roti canai with egg. I don't know if you call that roti telur, but anyway, I ordered it in English, and I got the one with egg, and Jamie got a plain one. Enjoyed that very much. He had a cup of black coffee. I had a cup of local tea, sweetened milk tea, which was really good, actually. And then after we had our food, then we had the donuts, and then Jamie surprised me with two things. He surprised me with egg tarts from Bun Choon, which were really good. They really were. I think in the video I didn't react to them that strongly, but the more I think about them and the more I remember them, it was like they were really good, particularly the crust. Thick, really flaky, crust containing the egg tart in the middle. They were really good. So I think Bun Choon kind of deserves its reputation as making good lemon tarts. And Jamie also surprised me because he took out a Ziploc bag, and inside the Ziploc bag he had a stack of Tim Hortons serviettes. And to be honest, I wasn't even aware that Tim Hortons had become an international brand. So I guess it's the Canadian version of Starbucks or something that's spreading around the world. Who knew? But he was in Manila, and they had a bunch of Tim Hortons in Manila, he said. And then every time he went there for a cup of coffee, he would end up with some Tim Hortons serviettes, more than he needed, and he would just put them in his little Ziploc bag and save them for later. And there he was, sitting with a Canadian who never stops talking about his Tim Hortons plastic coffee mug, which I've had forever and ever. And he thought, aha, I can hand over a Tim Hortons serviette, which he did. So that was interesting. I told Jamie something he didn't know, which is that Tim Horton himself, the founder, that the restaurant chain is named after, is famous because he played hockey. Not surprising, obviously. He was a hockey player for the NHL. And oddly enough, I knew that. I mean, I'm Canadian, I know Tim Hortons, I know who Tim Horton was. But even I wasn't really aware of his record as a hockey player. Because I told Jamie, well, yeah, he's famous because he played in the NHL. But beyond that, I didn't know anything about him. I think he predated my time. When I was a young boy watching hockey, Saturday hockey night in Canada with my father every Saturday night. That was the Canadian tradition, to gather around the TV and watch hockey night in Canada every Saturday night when the Toronto Maple Leafs, their games would be televised. In that era, we were talking about people like Bobby Orr and Phil Esposito and all the classic, starting teams of the NHL. Philadelphia Flyers and the Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs, Montreal Canadiens, the Chicago Blackhawks, these teams. And all the players at that time, all the names I grew up with, Tim Horton wasn't one of them that I'm aware of. I don't remember his name ever coming up, and I think he predated that era. But last night, after this whole experience, I opened up his Wikipedia page entry and read about him, and yeah, he was a big deal. Much bigger deal in the NHL than I knew. a defenseman, which I admire because I also played defense when I was a hockey player. And to be a star defenseman is very difficult. You have to be very good, like a Bobby Orr, who was also another famous defenseman. Most defensemen are basically solid positional players. They don't get the glory. They don't score the goals. They don't handle the pucks. They start the plays, but they don't finish them. The forwards and the centers, they're the highly skilled puck handlers who score the goals, and they're the people that you hear about. You don't really hear about the defenseman as a rule. So Tim Horton was unusual in that he was, highly celebrated hockey player despite being a defenseman, scoring a lot of goals, assisting on a lot of goals, playing on a lot of winning teams, won the Stanley Cup multiple times on the teams he was on. And I didn't know this, he was known as a bruiser, like an enforcer, but he wasn't a vicious kind of enforcer. He was known for being strong. I mean, just immensely strong. That's what everybody said about him. And that if he did happen to get into a fight, which was a fairly common thing in hockey, almost a tradition, I guess. But when he would fight, I guess he would just grab the opposing player in a bear hug and just crush them. And, with the strength of his arms, he was just that strong a man and that strong a hockey player. And I didn't know anything about him. I didn't know any of this about Tim Horton. But I guess he was quite a character, and his life ended in a single car drunk driving accident. I guess he was driving while intoxicated and crashed his own car. I don't know the details. I just read that one line in his bio, and he died in that car crash at quite a young age. Again, I didn't know that at all. I didn't know that part of his story either. So, Tim Horton, that's my Tim Horton tangent. So yeah, we had a good breakfast there, had the donuts, had the egg tart, and then as it got closer to 10 a.m., we got up and went over to the mosque and hung out there for a few minutes. They had a nice signboard outside giving the history of the mosque. I won't go into that here. You can see that in the original video. And then, as I said, or as I hinted at, there wasn't an actual guided tour of a group of people. In fact, it was just Jamie and I waiting there, and then a man came up to us and just introduced himself. His name was Latif, and he is a volunteer at the mosque, an active member of that mosque's community. And as a volunteer, one of his, I wouldn't call it a job, because for him it was clearly a pleasure, was to show visitors the mosque and answer their questions. And he took Jamie and I inside the mosque. Jamie, mentioned to him, I totally forgot. I apologize. I had long pants ready, but I forgot to bring them. I forgot to wear them, and that was no problem because they did have this article of clothing for visitors to put on, men and women, in case they needed them. And Jamie took his and put it on expertly. Latif even complimented on him, saw the way he put it on and says, "Oh, you have experience. You know how to put this on, don't you?" And he says, "Yes, I know how to do it." The special technique for wrapping it around your waist and tying it off. There's a way you do it properly. And Jamie being Jamie, he knew the right way to do it. So he impressed Latif with that. So the mosque, again, has a very interesting history, and we read it on the signboard outside. Latif told us about the history, and the interesting thing for me, and I'm really hoping this worked out, is that I asked Latif, our guide, if he would mind if I took my microphone, because I have a Rode wireless microphone transmitter. It isn't connected to the camera by a cord. I asked him if he'd mind if I clipped it to his shirt, because I had it on my shirt, because I'm recording my own voice as a rule, but it wouldn't pick up his voice. And I asked him if he'd mind, would you mind if I put this microphone on you? And he was open to that. So I haven't had a chance to watch the video myself yet, and I'm hoping that it picked up his voice well. It was very quiet in the mosque. We were the only people in this area, the big prayer hall space that we went into could probably seat shoulder to shoulder, maybe as many as 1,500 people, over 1,000 easily, maybe up to 1,500 in this big area. The mosque as a whole can accommodate 3,000 worshipers at a time. And it was very quiet in there. It's carpeted, of course. We took our shoes off at the entrance or walking through there barefoot or in socks. And Latif was speaking, and he had the microphone right here on his shirt. He even let me adjust it, which is kind of interesting. I gave it to him. It has a little clip on it, and then he put it on his own shirt collar. But because he's not really used to it, he didn't quite get it on properly, and the whole microphone kind of flopped over and was not oriented properly. And I'm looking at him, and again, I'm feeling a little bit awkward, of course. Here I am in a mosque, going on a tour, and then I have Latif, our guide, and I'm making him wear a microphone. I kind of had to screw up my courage a little bit just to ask him if this was okay. And if he had said no, I would have understood perfectly. But these are public guided tours, and I thought I'd take a chance. Maybe he'd be okay with it. I told him I had a YouTube channel. I gave him the name card from Planet Doug and told him I hope to feature their mosque in a video. So I was upfront about all of that, what I was going to do with the audio that I'd be recording, and he was absolutely fine with it, and he clipped it on. But then these microphones are a bit heavy, top heavy. That's one design problem with the Rode. All the weight is in the top, and then when you clip them on, they have a tendency to fall over because the top wants to point downwards. So sometimes it doesn't get oriented properly, and that happened with him. And I'm busy, I was using my Insta360 One X2 camera, and I took that camera deliberately because I knew I wanted to record this experience, and I didn't want to be standing there with a GoPro pointing it at him the whole time. And I knew he'd be talking about things in the mosque, and I'd want the camera to be aiming at the things he was talking about, and I didn't want to be standing there listening to the guide, whoever it turned out to be, and then pointing the camera at his face and then being distracted by aiming I just didn't want to be that guy doing that with the camera. And with the 360 camera, I can just hold it off here in the distance and let it film. And then in editing, I can focus on Latif, our guide. I could focus on Jamie, me, the mosque, whatever he's talking about. So I brought the 360 camera, and I'm standing there holding it while he's speaking, and I was so distracted by the microphone because it had flopped over and it was bothering me so much that I have this opportunity to record his voice, and yet it's pointing in the wrong direction. I'm thinking, I don't want to interrupt him, but man, I really have to. And I waited for an appropriate moment, and I said, "Oh, excuse me, do you mind if I adjust your microphone?" And he said, "Oh no, go ahead." So then I kind of got up to him, thinking I'm part of some sort of a professional film crew or something. I'm grabbing the microphone and I'm adjusting it and clipping it onto his shirt and doing, getting him all set up. So that was kind of interesting. And then I had the microphone was situated much better, and then we went on with the tour. And he told us all about everything going on inside the mosque. And Jamie had a ton of questions for him. I had questions for him. And he spent as much time as we wanted with us. He's very generous with his time, answered all of our questions, gave us a lot of interesting information, things that I certainly didn't know, things that Jamie didn't know, a lot of surprising things about the mosque that we were in, about mosques in general. And again, I won't talk about all of that because that's all in the original video. I don't want to spoil that. But it was a very interesting tour, learned a lot of things. We didn't really go around the whole mosque because, as Latif explained to us, the Masjid India is not one of the big mosques of Kuala Lumpur. So if you go on a tour or go inside, like the Federal Mosque, I think he called it. I've seen that mosque. I've gone by it in the past. I've never gone inside. Or the National Mosque. They're much bigger buildings in general with more parts. You know, they may have a nursery or a school or other buildings. So if you go on a tour, they can actually take you to different places. The Masjid India is a very interesting mosque, but it's a smaller one than these big ones. You know, I think the Federal Mosque, he said, can accommodate 17,000 people at a time. And by comparison, the Masjid India can hold 3,000, and that would be packed full, you know, 3,000 people. So it's a much smaller place. So he essentially took us into the main prayer hall where the prayer service would take place and all the worshipers would be, you know, lined up along on the, you know, everyone has seen that. If you haven't been to a mosque, you've certainly seen it in movies and TV shows, what the prayer hall of a mosque looks like. And he took us in there and we sort of stood in the middle of that room, and then he described everything going on around us and answered our questions. But then after that, there really wasn't anywhere else to go. We had sort of seen the mosque, and so he didn't take us to other buildings or other rooms, anything like that. I was kind of hoping we would go up into the tower, you know, the minaret. Because again, my understanding is that traditionally, that is where the call to prayer would come from. That's why the minarets are there. Whenever, you know, the imam or whoever was doing it that day would sing out the call to prayer, they would climb to the top of the minaret, the tower, and then they would sing the call to prayer over the community from high up above them. And of course, we don't generally have that tradition anymore because they have, you know, microphones and amplifiers and a speaker system for that. But I thought maybe he would take us up the tower. That would have been quite interesting, but perhaps it's difficult to fit that into the tour because I don't think they use the tower that often anymore. Perhaps it's not easily accessible, and they can't really have, you know, big groups of visitors climbing up that narrow staircase to the top of the tower. So we didn't go up to the tower, and yeah, we just saw the main prayer hall. But the highlight by far was Latif, our guide, and he was such a well-spoken man. He was a very intelligent man, thought about these things a lot, had a lot of experience talking about Islam and talking about the mosque with visitors, answering their questions. And I got the impression that he was very understanding of dumb questions. Perhaps I shouldn't say dumb questions, that's not quite fair. More like uninformed questions. I can see visitors coming from all over the world, and if you've had no exposure to Islam or like Muslim countries or mosques, you just don't know. I mean, you might not even know the most basic things, and Latif was very patient and was willing to answer any and all questions. There were no dumb questions for Latif as our guide, and I appreciated that very much. As I said, it wasn't an official tour with an official set schedule or anything like that, so our time in the mosque sort of ended when Jamie and I ran out of our questions. To be honest, I had a lot more questions. I could have kept going for a long time, but you just have a sense of that. You can sort of feel like, okay, this, you know, it's time to sort of wind things down. We've had a very interesting experience here, and it was, yeah, things were just sort of winding down. And then Latif and Jamie and I sort of started our path, you know, moving out of the mosque. Still talking, still asking questions as they occurred to us. And they had a large display of brochures on the outside. Speaking of ill-informed questions or, you know, dumb questions, they had a brochure basically for every topic, like basically a guide to Islam, like any topic you might think about, you know, like Ramadan. What is fasting? Like, why do we fast at Ramadan? They had a brochure for that. What is, you know, the clothing of Islam? They had a brochure for that. Like every topic you can think of, a question they might have about Islam, they had a brochure in English for that. And Latif encouraged me to go and take some of these brochures, you know, if I have more questions. Yeah, very worthwhile experience. I enjoyed that great deal. And I'm looking forward to editing the video that I shot there. And I'm just hoping that there were no technical glitches. It often seems like the one time you really need your camera and your microphone to be firing on all cylinders, to be working. That's the one time you tend to run into a problem and something goes wrong. So I'm hoping everything more or less went well. And when I put the video together, I can do justice to the tour that we got, because it really was quite interesting. I was very impressed with that whole experience. Once we left, Jamie and I went for a walk around the rest of old Little India. We stopped at a place I'd visited before. There's quite a well-known tea place, like tea tarek, a pulled tea kind of place. They call it ABC, famous tea or something like that. You'll see it in the video. And I went there before, and I think I shot video there before, and we took a seat there, and I got what did I order? It's funny, I tried to order martabak, because I saw they brought a menu, like a really nice laminated menu with everything on it in English to pick and choose from, and I spotted something that looked like martabak, and I thought, oh wow, okay, and then I looked, yeah, martabak was on the menu. I tried to order that, but they couldn't make that. It wasn't available at the time. And I tried to order a mango lassi. Those are the sorts of things that catches a foreigner's eye, you know. It's like, oh, mango lassi, let's have that. But they couldn't do that either. But I ended up getting, pulled tea. Though, as I said to Jamie, it was kind of funny because they have two areas. The main area where they make the tea and the food and the cash register. But then they have another room sort of beside it with more seating, and we were seated over there. So like when you order the pulled tea, you sort of want to see it flying through the air, being poured from container to container, from container to cup. You want to see all that activity. But of course I ordered that type of tea, but then I never got to see any of that because it was happening over there where they were preparing the tea. And when it was done and it came to my table all covered in, frothy bubbles on the top, I knew that all that had happened, but I didn't get to see any of it or take any video of it. But it was still very good. Yeah, I ordered dosai masala, and that was really good. To be honest, I didn't really sit down thinking I wanted a meal, but somehow when they put the menu in front of me and I had a camera running, I thought, well, I better have some kind of take advantage of this opportunity, and I can order something. And tried to get the martabak, and then I thought, okay, what else? And I just saw, dosai masala, and I ordered that, and it was really good. It was big, substantial, packed with onions and potatoes on the inside of this, rolled up bread, and then you had all the sauces, that came with it. That was really good. So yeah, and then Jamie and I left from there, walked around a little bit. One interesting thing is that, and I think I remember this from my last visit. I'm just now getting this memory, because while we were sitting there, 3 different groups of people came in asking for money, and they all had a piece of paper, like a computer printout that said, I forget the exact wording, but explaining, could you please give me some money? I am from Palestine. And it had like a mother and a young girl came in first, and the young girl came up to our table, showed me this piece of paper, I am from Palestine. And so I gave her a little bit of money, and then I spoke to her and said, oh, do you speak English? She shook her head no. And I kind of wanted to have a little chat with her, just what is your name, that sort of thing. But she said she didn't speak English, just shook her head no. And then they left, and then someone else came in, I am from Palestine. And then a third person came in, I am from Palestine. So while you're sitting there at ABC, you have to be prepared for people, coming up to your table asking for money. And it happened, I think it happened at President as well. Yeah, while we were sitting at President Curry House, a blind man came in. He was not part of the Palestine contingent, but a blind man came in, and the blind beggars that come in, they tend to be selling little packages of serviettes. So, and they're usually guided by someone. So it'll be a sighted person will be walking with them, sort of holding their arm and guiding them from table to table. But then the blind man or blind woman, whoever it is, will be holding these serviettes, and then you can give them 1 or 2 ringgit and get a package of serviettes in return. And while we were at President Curry House, someone like that came in, and I got a little package of serviettes. I kind of like having those because whenever they come in with the serviettes, and you may not think about it, it's just part of the transaction. You know, like you want to give them 1 or 2 or 3 ringgit, whatever you give them, and then that's basically, as far as you're concerned, you know, that's what's happening. These people, they need some money. You give them some money, they go on their way. But as part of it, you end up with this little bag of serviettes, and you may not be thinking about it, and you stuff it in your pocket or put it in your knapsack. But then I was sitting there at a restaurant, and then you've got sticky fingers, and you're looking around for a serviette, and you go, ah, aha, aha. And then you remember that the day before you got one of those little packages and you stuffed it in your knapsack, and then, yes. So it's always nice to have them. You know, you don't think of it at the time, but then later on it's like, oh man, I'm glad I got that little package of serviettes. Ended up being quite useful. So I have a few of them squirreled away in all my bags and all my various pockets by now. And then that was, the end of my morning with Jamie. And we said goodbye here at the Kojoy Hotel, talked a little bit about his future plans. As I said, he's getting ready for his trip to Borneo. You know, Sabah and Sarawak, are those the two provinces of Borneo that are part of Malaysia? As is his habit, Jamie was going to walk back to Pudu, back to his place. He's still making arrangements for his trip to Borneo. He has his flight booked and he has a place to stay there, but he's thinking ahead as well to other places he wants to go. So he's doing a lot of research online, places to go, places to stay, things like that. And then, as I mentioned earlier in this video, I got a message from him last night saying, oh, because we said goodbye out front of the Kojoy. You know, he's leaving tomorrow, and we assumed that this would be the last time I'd get to see him. So it was like, oh, it was great to meet you, shaking hands. This was amazing, really nice. Maybe in the future we can run into each other again. And then I got a message from him saying, oh, our goodbye might have been premature because I've been thinking about that popia that you mentioned in your video. And like, hey, do you want to meet for breakfast tomorrow morning? We can meet back at ICC Pudu and have some popia. And I said, yeah, absolutely. Because Pudu is just it's so close here. It's like 2 MRT stops or LRT stops away. I just have to walk to Masjid Jamek, and I'm at IC Pudu in half an hour, you know, at the most, from door to door, half an hour. So I said, yeah, absolutely. And then I got another message from him saying, hey, what do you think about reaching out to Bill Price, the international big shot, see if he wants to join us? And Bill is available, so he's going to meet us there as well. And that's what I'm doing later on this morning. So in terms of the Planet Doug YouTube channel and videos, that's what's going on. I'll be working on the Masjid India video today, hoping to finish it and post it today. Well, I don't think it'll be, considering the things I'm doing today, I won't have enough time to actually post it by today, so it'll be posted at 5 p.m. the day after. But I'm also working on my next video from Penang. I still have the Penang series of videos. I have a whole backlog of video that I shot there, and I'll be sticking them in at stagger at moments, whenever I manage to finish one. So I'm working on my next Penang video. Oh, interestingly enough, I've been thinking about the electric scooters here. You know, thinking of it as a YouTuber as well. You do start to think about things you can do that might be entertaining on video. Normally what I do, obviously, is my idea for YouTube is I basically film my normal life. I just do what I normally do, but shoot video while I'm doing it. But occasionally you get the impulse to do something that you wouldn't normally do, And I don't think on my own I would normally rent an electric scooter and go zooming around Kuala Lumpur on it. It's not something I'm not going to wake up in the morning and think, oh, I got to do that today. But if you're shooting YouTube videos, you know, these ideas do pop into your head. Someone even left a comment saying, hey, you know, you should rent one of those and make a video about it. So I was thinking about that. And I took some time last night to visit the Oogya. That's the name of this company, Oogya, or it's the name of the app. I think the company is like Zeus Beam or something like that. I don't know where these names are coming from, but I think I know where Oogya came from. It's just how you, if you're trying to find an internet name that's memorable, you know, you come up with things like Yahoo and Google, you know, words that don't really mean anything at the beginning, but then they become well-known brands. And then they thought, oh, Oogya. And whenever I see that, I think of it as an old car horn. What's the sound that they always make? Like ooga, ooh, is it ooga? They hit the horn. What's the word in English? Is it ooga? No, I can't think of it right now. But it makes me think of an old time Model T kind of car, and they hit that old horn, you know, it's like ooga, ooga, get out of the way. And that's what I think of. But anyway, Oogya is the name of the app. And they have these scooters scattered around Kuala Lumpur, and I've seen them, and I'm just curious about them. I'm not really that interested in the scooter riding experience, but I'm interested in them from the point of view of the organization. Because I do find in the modern world, I think about this all the time, I see all these companies that exist now, and before the company existed, if you told me an idea for that company and said, oh, I have an idea for this company and this is what I want to do, I would think about your idea and tell you you were nuts. That is never going to work because all I see are problems. Even me, like looking at the scooters around town, all I see are problems. How in the world is that company even functional? Like, the scooters, for example, they're just out there on the street. They're all over KL right now, just out there on the sidewalks. How is it that every vandal in the world isn't out there smashing them, beating them, picking them up, throwing them into the river, throwing them into dumpsters, spray painting them with graffiti? How are they not destroyed every night? For example, first problem. How are the batteries charged, right? How in the world could you employ people to, like, how do you even know where the scooters are located? They're all over the place. They just seem to be in random spots. And it's like, how do you know where they are? Someone rents your scooter, zooms around, and then their trip is over, and then what do? They just leave it there? Like, how can you run a business where you don't even know where your assets are? How do you keep track of them? How do you charge them up? And then, yeah, just on and on and on. How do people pay for their time? They have to download the app. You know, what's the payment structure? If you told me your idea for Oogya, I would have told you just forget about it. There's nothing but headaches. I don't even see how it's physically, logistically, technologically even possible. There's no way this can work. That would be my opinion. But apparently I'm a dummy because Oogya exists, it's out there, and apparently this works. So I went to their website and they have an FAQ section. And I was reading through the FAQs and all the things I was just talking about are all there. And one by one, they're dealing with all these issues that I brought up. And man, what an undertaking. First of all, I guess they've divided the city into zones. And every scooter has like a GPS tracker in it. So they know exactly where every scooter is. And you, as the customer, you also know. So yeah, I guess it makes perfect sense, but I never thought of it. But what they've done is put trackers in the scooter, you download the app, and then if you want to go for a scooter ride, you open the app, it knows your location based on your smartphone, and then it shows you all the different scooters, their exact physical location. It's like, oh, there's one over there, 2 blocks in that direction, 3 blocks over there. And you can see where all the scooters are, and then you can go get it from that spot. And as a customer, you can only pick up the scooter and leave it in a designated business area. So you can ride the scooter anywhere you want. So you can leave the business area as defined by UGYA, but when your ride is over and you walk away from the scooter, you have to leave it inside one of these designated zones. I think that they call business areas. So you have to ride your scooter back. You have to look on your app and, okay, where is the business area? And then you leave your scooter there within that zone. And that's how UGYA kind of keeps track, you know, of all their scooters. So I thought, oh, okay. So they kind of have that figured out. How they charge up the batteries, that I couldn't tell you. But they basically say, you know, like FAQ, what do I do if my scooter battery just dies on me? And they basically say, well, there's nothing you can do except when your scooter battery runs out, you just park it there, and then I guess you log off on that one. You have to scan the QR code, and you hit end ride. Very important. You have to end your ride. If you don't end it, you just keep paying and paying and paying. So you have to be very careful about that. You just basically leave the scooter wherever the battery died, end ride, and then go to the next scooter, hop on that one, and then keep going. So if the battery dies, you just leave it there and go get another scooter. That's how they deal with that. And one problem I never even thought of is one of the FAQs that says, like, what do I do if my phone dies? The battery in my phone dies during my scooter ride, my rental period. And they say, yeah, that's a problem because you have to end the ride. So you use the app, scan the QR code on the scooter, you start your rental period, and that rental period will continue up until you hit the end ride button. But if your phone dies mid-ride, you can't hit the end ride button. What do you do? And they say, well, what you have to do is contact UGYA customer service, inform them of the problem, and that they will stop the rental period. But again, how do you do that, right? I mean, I don't know, your phone is dead. You know, oh, I got to contact UGYA. Like, now what do you do? So I think it's very important if you rent one of these scooters, make sure your phone is fully charged. Or if you see the battery going down, end your ride before the battery dies. So you have to have an active smartphone to do all this. So that's another issue, yeah, very important one. And I was also curious how you keep your scooter. Like, what if I ride my scooter to a coffee shop, I want to go in and get a coffee, come back out and get on the same scooter. But while I've left my scooter outside, won't the next person just come along, hop on it and take off? It's like, how do you keep your scooter? But you can do that. You can pause your ride. So you log in with your QR code, ride it to where the coffee shop, and then on your app, you pause your scooter. So it's locked, and only you can operate it. And you pause it while you go in and get your coffee, do whatever you want to do. And then you're still being charged for your time. It's being charged by the minute of rental, I believe. And when you pause it, you're being charged at a reduced rate. So it's much, much cheaper while it's paused. You get your coffee, drink your coffee, whatever you want to do, then you come back out and then you restart it again. You unpause it, and now you go back to the normal rental fee. One issue in Kuala Lumpur, or Malaysia in general, also in the FAQ, because of the traffic laws and the permitting that they have, you're not allowed to ride on the street, which again, I didn't realize. I thought, well, obviously you can ride around on the street. Why else would you get a scooter if you can't ride on the street? But in KL, technically, you can't. So according to the rules, you can only ride on sidewalks and the bike lanes. You're restricted to those two places. You're not technically allowed to go out into traffic onto streets. And of course, they have all kinds of instructions of how you ride these things, you know, the brakes and the throttle and everything like that. But the basic idea is download the app, and you have to put in your credit card, Visa or MasterCard. I think those are the only two payment options. And to be honest, because of that, I might not do it. If I could do it with Google Pay, for example, and have that level, that layer of security in terms of payment, I might do it. But in the app itself, you have to enter your credit card number and credit card information into the app. And I don't know. I get very nervous with my credit card in particular. It's very important to me, and I can't have anything go wrong with it. So I only use it when I absolutely have to. So I'm not thrilled at the idea of entering my credit card number. I wish I could do it with touch and go eWallet, something like that. Yeah, I'd be all about that, you know, payment through touch and go. That I would do, but I really don't want to enter my credit card information into an individual app like that, because I'm only going to use it once or twice, and I'm never going to use it again. So it's a bit risky for me, so I may not do it. But anyway, you have to put in your credit card number, and then you have to buy credit. I thought maybe you would go on your ride, and when your ride is over, then the charge, whatever your ride, however long it lasted, that gets charged to your credit card. But I think the way it works is before your ride begins, you have to buy a certain amount of Ugya credit, and that gets charged to your credit card. And then as you're riding, it uses up your Ugya credit until it goes down to 0. So that's how they work that out. But man, after I read through all the FAQs, it's like, man, what a complicated business. And as I said, if you presented me with that as a business proposal, I would have told you you're nuts. No way. It's way too difficult, way too many problems. There's no way this is going to work. I cannot see how it's going to work. But apparently it works. So yeah, but still a lot of work. But we'll see whether I end up doing it or not. And with that, I think that's the last thing I will talk about this morning. Lots of other little details from my life going on, but I really just wanted to talk about the behind-the-scenes experience of going to the Masjid India yesterday, because that was quite interesting. So I have to do some other things here and get ready to go have some popia with Jamie. And I think I'm going to bring a camera for this experience as well, probably a GoPro. I'm still struggling with that. I love using the Insta360. That has a lot of problems using that camera, but I really enjoy the ability to, you know, reframe the video afterwards. But at the same time, it's a major time commitment in terms of editing the video. So it's starting to become like the video has to be really important to me in order for me to break out the 360 camera. It has to be a very specific situation, like my visit to the mosque. And I thought, okay, that's a good time to use the 360 camera. But for having popia at ICC Pudu this morning, I think I need the simplicity of the GoPro, you know, just to aim it at me, aim it at the popia, aim it at me. You know, it's going to be a very different type of video. But yeah, sometimes you just need ease of use and speed of editing, and then the GoPro shines for that. All right, that's it. Behind the scenes, done for this morning. Hope you're having a good day. I'm definitely going to have a good day, starting with popia. What could be bad about that? And I'll see you in the next video.